The summer heat was unbearable that day in the kingdom of Eldoria. The sun blazed down like an angry god, making the stone courtyard feel like a giant oven. Sir Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow as he stood at his post outside the royal palace. His heavy armor felt like it was cooking him alive. But he didn't move an inch from his position. Marcus had been a royal guard for 8 years now. He was known throughout the kingdom for his unwavering dedication and perfect record. Never once had he left his post early. Never once had he complained about the conditions. And never once had he failed in his duties. The other guards looked up to him with respect and admiration. Today was different, though. The heat was so intense that even the palace cats had found shade under the fountain. 3 guards had already collapsed from heat exhaustion and been taken to the medical wing. The captain had given permission for the guards to rotate every hour instead of their usual 3-hour shifts. But Marcus refused to leave his post. "You're going to kill yourself out there?" called out his friend Thomas from the shaded entrance. "Even the captain said we could take breaks." Marcus shook his head firmly. "Princess Charlotte is inside having an important meeting with the foreign ambassadors. My duty is to protect her, and I won't abandon that duty because of a little heat." The truth was, Marcus had a secret that no one knew about. He wasn't just dedicated to his job because of honor or duty. He had fallen deeply in love with Princess Charlotte over the years of protecting her. Of course, he knew it was impossible. She was royalty, and he was just a common guard from a farming family. But his love for her made him want to be the best protector possible. As the hours passed, the heat became even more brutal. Marcus's vision started to blur, and his legs felt weak. His uniform was soaked with sweat, and his mouth was as dry as desert sand. But still, he stood tall and proud at his post. He could hear the muffled voices from inside the palace as the princess conducted her important business. Princess Charlotte was indeed in a crucial meeting. But she kept glancing out the window at the courtyard. She had noticed Marcus standing there for hours in the terrible heat, while other guards had rotated or moved to cooler positions. She knew his reputation as the most dedicated guard in the palace. But this seemed extreme even for him. "Your Highness, are you paying attention to the trade agreements?" asked Ambassador Reynolds with a slight frown. "Of course, Ambassador." "Please continue," Charlotte replied, but her mind was elsewhere. She was worried about Marcus. She had seen other guards collapse from the heat, and she knew he had been out there much longer than anyone else. The meeting dragged on for another hour. Charlotte tried to focus on the important matters of trade routes and diplomatic relations. She couldn't stop thinking about the loyal guards standing in the blazing sun. She had always noticed Marcus among all the guards. There was something different about him, a kindness in his eyes and a gentleness in his manner that stood out from the others. Finally, as the sun reached its peak and the heat became truly dangerous, Charlotte made a decision that would surprise everyone. She stood up suddenly in the middle of the ambassador's presentation about grain imports. "Gentlemen, I apologize, but we must continue this meeting inside where it's cooler. The heat is affecting my concentration," she announced. The ambassadors looked confused, since they were already inside the air-conditioned palace. But they agreed to move to a different room. What they didn't know was that Charlotte had a completely different plan in mind. She had noticed something in Marcus that others had missed, and she was about to do something that would change both of their lives forever. As the meeting participants gathered their papers and prepared to move, Charlotte walked over to the window once more. Marcus was still there, swaying slightly now, but refusing to give up his post. She could see that he was in real danger from the heat, but she also saw something else, a dedication and love that went far beyond normal duty. "Princess, are you coming?" asked her personal assistant, Lady Margaret. Charlotte turned away from the window with determination in her eyes. "Yes. But first I need to take care of something very important." She walked toward the door with a plan that would shock the entire palace and show everyone that sometimes the heart knows what the mind cannot understand. Princess Charlotte walked quickly through the palace halls, her silk dress flowing behind her. The servants she passed bowed respectfully, but they were confused by her hurried pace and determined expression. It wasn't like the princess to rush anywhere, especially during important diplomatic meetings. Lady Margaret struggled to keep up with Charlotte's fast steps. "Your Highness, where are we going?" "The ambassadors are waiting for us in the blue room. The ambassadors can wait a few minutes." Charlotte replied without slowing down. "There's something more important I need to do right now." She reached the palace kitchens and surprised everyone by entering personally. The cook, Mrs. Henderson, nearly dropped her ladle when she saw the princess. "Your Highness." "What brings you to the kitchens?" Mrs. Henderson asked, wiping her hands on her apron nervously. "I need a large glass of your coldest water, some ice, and a damp towel immediately," Charlotte ordered. "And prepare a cool place for someone to rest." The kitchen staff rushed around too, fulfilled the princess's strange request. They had never seen her in the kitchens before, let alone asking for such simple items with such urgency. Meanwhile, out in the courtyard, Marcus was fighting to stay conscious. The world was spinning around him, and his legs felt like they might give out at any moment. The armor that usually felt like a second skin now felt like a prison of hot metal. His throat was burning with thirst, but he refused to abandon his post. Other guards watched from the shade with worry. Captain Rodriguez had ordered them to keep an eye on Marcus, but they knew better than to try to force him to leave his position. Marcus was stubborn when it came to his duties. "He's going to collapse any second now," whispered Guard Peterson to his partner. "Someone should do something." "You know Marcus won't listen to us," replied Guard Williams. "He's too proud and too dedicated. Only a direct order from the princess herself could make him leave that spot." They had no idea how right they were. Charlotte emerged from the palace carrying the glass of ice water and the damp towel. Lady Margaret and several servants followed behind her, all looking confused and concerned. The princess had never done anything like this before. As soon as she stepped into the blazing sunlight, Charlotte felt the brutal heat hit her like a physical force. She couldn't imagine how Marcus had been standing in this for so long. Her respect for his dedication grew even stronger. But so did her worry for his safety. She walked directly toward Marcus, her heels clicking on the hot stone. The other guards in the area straightened up when they saw her approaching, but she paid them no attention. Her focus was entirely on the swaying figure of Marcus. Marcus saw her coming through his blurred vision. He tried to stand straighter and look more alert, even though he was barely conscious. In his mind, he was worried that something was wrong. Why else would the princess come outside in this terrible heat? "Your Highness," he managed to say in a hoarse voice as she approached. "Is everything all right? Do you need protection?" Charlotte stopped right in front of him, close enough to see the sweat pouring down his face and the exhaustion in his eyes. Her heart ached seeing him in such a state, but she was also amazed by his concern for her safety, even when he was clearly suffering. "Sir." "Marcus," she said in a voice that carried across the courtyard, "I have a very important question for you." Marcus tried to focus on her face, fighting against the heat and exhaustion. "Yes, Your Highness." "Anything you need? Why are you still standing here when other guards have taken shelter from this dangerous heat?" The question caught Marcus off guard. He expected her to ask about a security threat or give him orders about the diplomatic meeting. He didn't know how to answer without revealing his true feelings. "It's my duty, Your Highness. I must protect you," he said simply. Charlotte stepped even closer. The watching guards and servants held their breath, sensing that something important was happening. "And who gave you orders to stand in this exact spot during this heat wave?" she asked. Marcus looked confused. "No one gave me specific orders, Your Highness. I knew you were inside with important guests. I wanted to make sure you were safe." A small smile appeared on Charlotte's face. This was exactly what she had hoped to hear. His dedication wasn't just about following orders. It came from his heart. "Sir Marcus," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I hereby give you a direct royal command." The entire courtyard fell silent. Everyone present, guards, servants, and even some nobles who had gathered to watch waited to hear what the princess would command. Marcus straightened his shoulders as much as his weakened body would allow. Ready to follow any order she might give? "Sir Marcus," Charlotte said clearly, "I command you to drink this water immediately and come with me to a cooler place." She held out the glass of ice water toward him. Marcus stared at it in confusion. This wasn't the kind of royal command he had expected. Around them, people began to whisper in surprise. "Your Highness, I don't understand." Marcus said weakly. My post is here. I need to guard you. You cannot guard me properly if you collapse from heat stroke, Charlotte replied firmly. The best way to protect me right now is to take care of yourself. That is a direct order from your princess. Marcus looked into her eyes and saw something he had never seen before. Genuine care and concern for him personally, not just as a guard but as a person. His heart began to race, though whether from the heat or this realization. He wasn't sure. With trembling hands, he took the glass of water. The ice clinked against the sides as he brought it to his lips. The first sip was like heaven, cool, refreshing, life-giving. He drank the entire glass in seconds. Thank you. Your Highness, he whispered. Charlotte took the damp towel, and, to everyone's shock, she stepped forward and gently placed it on Marcus's forehead and neck. The crowd gasped. A princess touching a common guard was unheard of in their kingdom. Can you walk? She asked softly, ignoring the surprised murmurs around them. Marcus nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure. With Charlotte's help, he took a few shaky steps toward the palace entrance. She stayed close beside him, ready to catch him if he fell. Lady Margaret rushed forward. Your Highness, perhaps I should call for the palace doctor and some servants to help Sir Marcus? No, Charlotte said firmly. I will help him myself. This caused even more whispers and shocked expressions. The princess was acting completely unlike herself, and everyone was trying to understand what was happening as they walked slowly toward the palace. Charlotte explained to Marcus, I'm taking you to the garden room. It's cool there. And you can rest while still being able to see the courtyard if you're worried about security. Marcus was amazed by her thoughtfulness. She understood his dedication to duty while also caring about his well-being. No one had ever treated him with such kindness and understanding. They reached the garden room, which was indeed much cooler, thanks to the stone walls and large windows that created a cross-breeze. Charlotte helped Marcus sit in a comfortable chair where he could still see outside. Stay here and rest, she ordered gently. That's a royal command, too. As she turned to leave, Marcus found the courage to speak up. Your Highness, may I ask why you came out into that heat to help me? Surely you have more important things to do. Charlotte paused at the doorway. She had been asking herself the same question. She knew the answer would change everything between them. Because, Sir Marcus, I have been watching you for a long time. I've seen your dedication, your kindness to everyone in the palace, and your gentle heart. I've seen how you help the younger guards, how you're patient with the servants, and how you treat everyone with respect regardless of their position. Marcus listened in amazement. The princess had been watching him, had noticed all those small things he did. But most importantly, Charlotte continued, I've seen that your dedication comes from something deeper than duty. And I wanted to understand what drives such devotion. Before Marcus could respond, she quickly left the room. But her words echoed in his mind. Did she somehow know about his feelings for her? And what did she mean about wanting to understand his devotion? Outside in the hallway, Charlotte leaned against the wall, her heart pounding. She had revealed much more than she intended to. For months, she had been observing Marcus, admiring his character, and feeling something she had never felt before. Today, seeing him suffering in the heat while maintaining his loyalty to her had forced her to acknowledge her own feelings. But what could come of it? She was a princess with royal duties and expectations. He was a guard, albeit the finest guard in the kingdom. Their worlds were completely different. Or were they? Charlotte made another decision that would surprise everyone. She was going to find out exactly what was possible when love was stronger than social expectations. Charlotte returned to the diplomatic meeting, but her mind was nowhere near trade agreements and political alliances. The ambassadors noticed her distraction, but were too polite to comment. She answered their questions automatically while thinking about Marcus resting in the garden room. Meanwhile, news of what had happened in the courtyard spread through the palace like wildfire. Servants whispered in hallways, guards discussed it during their shifts. Even the nobles were talking about the princess's unusual behavior. Did you see how she touched his face with that towel? Whispered one lady-in-waiting to another, and she helped him walk herself, instead of calling servants, replied the other. I've never seen Princess Charlotte act like that with anyone. In the garden room, Marcus was slowly recovering from his heat exhaustion. The cool air and rest were helping, but his mind was racing with questions. Why had the princess shown him such personal care? What did her words mean about understanding his devotion? He had served in the palace long enough to know that Charlotte was different from other royals. She was kind to everyone, but she always maintained proper distance. Today had been completely different. Today, she had treated him like someone she truly cared about. Captain Rodriguez entered the garden room, looking concerned and confused. "Marcus, what exactly happened out there?" he asked, sitting down across from his best guard. "The whole palace is talking about it." Marcus looked at his captain, a man he trusted and respected. "I honestly don't know, Captain. I was just doing my duty, standing at my post despite the heat. Then the princess came out and she took care of me personally. That's what I heard. That's what's got everyone talking," Rodriguez said, shaking his head. "In all my years here, I've never seen Princess Charlotte show such personal attention to any guard." "What did you two talk about?" Marcus hesitated. He couldn't tell his captain about his feelings for Charlotte, but he could share what she had said to him. "She said she had been watching me, noticing how I treat people and do my duties. She said she wanted to understand what drives my devotion," Marcus explained quietly. Captain Rodriguez raised his eyebrows. "She's been watching you specifically." "Marcus, do you realize what this might mean?" "What do you mean, sir?" "I mean that maybe Princess Charlotte sees something special in you too. Something more than just a good guard. The possibility that his feelings might somehow be returned had never seriously occurred to Marcus. He had always assumed his love was hopeless and one-sided. Back in the meeting room, Charlotte finally managed to wrap up the diplomatic session. The ambassadors seemed satisfied with the agreements they had reached, though they had definitely noticed her unusual distraction as soon as the last ambassador left. Lady Margaret approached Charlotte with concern written all over her face. "Your Highness, we need to talk about what happened today," she said carefully. Charlotte sighed. She knew this conversation was coming. Lady Margaret had been her closest advisor since childhood, and always spoke honestly with her. "I know what you're going to say, Margaret. A princess shouldn't show such personal care for a guard. It's not proper protocol. It's not just about protocol, Charlotte," Margaret said, using the princess's first name, as she only did in private. "The way you looked at him, the way you touched him so gently, the way you ignored everyone else to focus entirely on his well-being. That's not how someone acts toward a mere employee. That's how someone acts when they care deeply about another person." Charlotte walked to the window and looked out at the courtyard where Marcus had stood so bravely in the terrible heat. She couldn't deny the truth any longer. "You're right, Margaret. I do care about him deeply. I've been watching him for months, admiring not just his dedication but his character, his kindness, his gentle strength. Today, when I saw him suffering but still refusing to abandon his duty to protect me, I couldn't stand by and do nothing." Margaret sat down heavily in a chair. "Oh, Charlotte, do you understand what this means? You're falling in love with a palace guard?" "I'm not falling in love," Charlotte said quietly. "I've already fallen." The admission hung in the air between them. Margaret had served the royal family her entire life and understood the implications of such a confession. "What are you going to do about it?" Margaret asked softly. Charlotte turned from the window with determination in her eyes. "I'm going to find out if he feels the same way about me. And if he does, I'm going to figure out how to make this work. Charlotte, you know the obstacles you'll face? The royal council, your parents, the expectations of the kingdom, ... Double quotes. "I know all of that," Charlotte interrupted. "But Margaret, when I saw him today, his loyalty, his sacrifice, his pure heart, I realized that all the noble princes and wealthy suitors in the world don't have what Marcus has. He has real love, real devotion, real character." Margaret could see that Charlotte had made up her mind. "What's your plan?" Charlotte smiled for the first time that day. "I'm going to do something that will definitely surprise everyone, including Marcus himself." That evening, as the sun finally began to set and the palace cooled down, Charlotte made her way to the garden room where Marcus was still resting. She had changed from her formal meeting dress into a simpler gown, and she carried a tray with dinner for two. Marcus jumped to his feet when she entered, despite still feeling weak from his earlier ordeal. "Your Highness? You shouldn't be serving me food. Please, let me call a servant," he said, clearly flustered. "Sit down, Marcus," Charlotte said gently, setting the tray on a small table. "We need to talk, and I want to do it without servants or other guards around." The use of his first name, without, his title sent a shock through Marcus. Royals never used first names with guards unless something very significant was happening. Charlotte sat down across from him, and for the first time, they were just two people sharing a meal together. Not a princess and her guard. "How are you feeling?" she asked with genuine concern. "Much better, thanks to you," Marcus replied, still not quite believing this was happening. "Your Highness, I still don't understand why you risked the heat and ignored your important meeting to help me." Charlotte had rehearsed this conversation in her mind, but now that the moment was here, all her planned words disappeared. She decided to speak from her heart instead. "Marcus, can I ask you something honestly, and will you promise to answer me truthfully?" "Of course, Your Highness. Always. Why do you really stand guard so dedicatedly? Why do you go beyond what any other guard does? And please, don't just say it's your duty. I know there's more to it than that." Marcus felt his heart racing. This was the question he had always feared and hoped for at the same time. He looked into Charlotte's eyes and saw only kindness and genuine interest, not judgment. He took a deep breath and made a decision that would change his life forever. "Because, Your Highness, I... double quotes." He paused, gathering courage. "Because I love you. Not just as my princess, but as a person. I love your kindness to everyone, your intelligence, your strength, your compassion. I know it's hopeless and inappropriate, but my dedication comes from love, not just duty." Charlotte's heart soared. The words she had hoped to hear, but never dared expect, were finally spoken. "And what if I told you," she said softly, "that it's not hopeless at all?" Marcus stared at her in disbelief. "Your Highness, what do you mean?" "I mean that I have been watching you too, Marcus. I've seen your gentle heart, your integrity, your genuine care for everyone around you. I've seen how you help young guards learn their duties, how you're patient with difficult nobles, how you treat palace servants with the same respect you show to ambassadors." Charlotte reached across the table and took his hand in hers. Marcus felt electricity shoot through his entire body. "I've realized that all the princes and nobles who have courted me have been interested in my title, my kingdom, my wealth. But you see me as a person. You care about my safety, not because it's your job, but because you genuinely care about me. Are you saying... double quotes. Marcus couldn't finish the sentence, afraid to believe what he was hearing. "I'm saying that I love you too, Marcus. I love your pure heart, your dedication, your kindness. I love the man you are, not your title or position." They sat in silence for a moment, hands clasped, both hardly able to believe this was real. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Your Highness, Charlotte, what does this mean? You're a princess with responsibilities to the kingdom. I'm just a guard from a farming family. How could this ever work?" Charlotte squeezed his hand. "I don't have all the answers yet, but I know one thing for certain. Love like this is rare and precious. We can't just ignore it because of social expectations. But the royal council? Your parents, the nobles, they'll never accept it," Marcus said, though his heart wanted desperately to believe it was possible. "Let me worry about them," Charlotte said with determination. "Tomorrow, I'm going to announce something that will shock the entire kingdom. But tonight, I just want to sit here with you and enjoy this moment when we finally told each other the truth." As they sat together in the garden room, sharing dinner and quiet conversation, both of them knew their lives had changed forever. Outside, the palace buzzed with rumors about the princess and her guard. But neither of them cared anymore. They had found something more valuable than any royal protocol or social expectation. They had found true love. But Charlotte knew that the real test was yet to come. Tomorrow, she would have to face the consequences of following her heart instead of royal tradition. The next morning, Charlotte called for an emergency assembly in the Great Hall. Word spread quickly through the palace that the princess had something important to announce to everyone: nobles, guards, servants, and advisors alike. Marcus stood with the other guards, his heart pounding with nervousness. He had no idea what Charlotte planned to say, but he knew it would change everything for both of them. King William and Queen Isabella took their places on the royal thrones. Looking confused about their daughter's sudden announcement, the royal council members whispered among themselves, trying to guess what could be so urgent. Charlotte entered the hall wearing her most formal royal dress and crown. She looked every inch the princess, but Marcus could see the determination and slight nervousness in her eyes. "Citizens of our palace and representatives of our kingdom," Charlotte began, her voice clear and strong. "Yesterday, something happened that made me realize an important truth about leadership, about loyalty, and about what truly matters in life." The crowd listened intently. Everyone knew she was referring to the incident with Marcus in the courtyard. But no one could predict where this was leading. "Sir Marcus, please step forward," Charlotte commanded. Marcus felt his legs go weak, but he walked to the front of the hall as ordered. The crowd murmured with curiosity and confusion. This man, Charlotte continued, gesturing toward Marcus, showed such dedication to his duty yesterday that he was willing to risk his own life standing guard in dangerous heat. When I asked him why he went beyond what any other guard would do you know what he told me? She paused, looking around the room at all the faces staring at her. He told me it wasn't just duty. It was love. Pure, honest, selfless love. Gasps echoed through the hall. The king and queen looked shocked. The royal council members began whispering urgently. And in that moment, Charlotte said, her voice growing stronger, "I realize that this man possesses the most important quality any person can have, a genuine, loving heart. He doesn't serve me because of my title or my wealth or my power. He serves me because he truly cares about my well-being." Marcus stood frozen, amazed by Charlotte's courage, but terrified of what would come. "Next, I have been courted by princes from neighboring kingdoms, by wealthy nobles, by men with impressive titles and vast lands. But none of them have shown me the pure devotion that this humble guard shows every single day." Queen Isabella stood up abruptly. "Charlotte, what exactly are you saying?" Charlotte looked directly at her mother, then at her father, then at the entire assembled crowd. "I'm saying that I choose love over politics. I choose character over titles. I choose the man who sees me as a person, not just a princess." The hall erupted in shocked voices. Some people cheered. Others looked scandalized. And the royal council looked like they might faint. "Sir Marcus," Charlotte said, turning to face him directly, "yesterday, you were willing to sacrifice yourself out of love for me. Today, I'm willing to sacrifice royal expectations out of love for you. Will you accept my proposal to court me officially, regardless of what others might think?" Marcus felt tears in his eyes. This brave, incredible woman was choosing him over everything she had been raised to value. She was risking her position, her family's approval, and her kingdom's traditions for their love. "Your Highness," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I would be honored beyond measure, and I promise to spend every day proving that your faith in me is well placed." King William stood up, his face red with anger and confusion. "Charlotte, you cannot be serious. A princess cannot court a common guard." "Father," Charlotte replied respectfully but firmly, "yesterday I watched this common guard show more noble character than most of the titled nobles in our kingdom. Isn't true nobility about character rather than bloodline?" The crowd was buzzing with excitement and debate. Some people were cheering for the romantic gesture, while others looked horrified at this break from tradition. Lady Margaret stepped forward from the crowd. "Your Majesties, if I may speak," she said to the king and queen, "I've served this family my entire life, and I've never seen Princess Charlotte as happy or as certain about anything as she is right now. Perhaps we should consider that true love might be more valuable than political marriages." Captain Rodriguez also stepped forward. "Your Majesties, I have served as head of palace security for 15 years. Sir Marcus is the finest guard I have ever commanded, honest, brave, loyal, and kind. If Princess Charlotte sees these qualities as worthy of her love, perhaps we should trust her judgment. Slowly, more people began to speak up in support. Servants talked about Marcus's kindness to them. Young guards mentioned how he had helped and mentored them. Even some nobles admitted they had seen his exceptional character. The king and queen looked at each other, then at their daughter's determined face, then at Marcus standing proudly but humbly beside her. Finally, King William spoke. "Charlotte, this is highly irregular and will cause quite a stir in neighboring kingdoms." "Yes, father, it will," Charlotte agreed. "But it will also show them that our kingdom values love, character, and genuine devotion over empty political alliances." Queen Isabella studied Marcus carefully. "Young man, do you understand what you're accepting? The scrutiny, the challenges, the expectations that will be placed on you?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Marcus replied. "And I'm ready to face all of it, because Princess Charlotte is worth everything." The queen smiled slightly despite herself. She could see the genuine love in both their eyes. After a long pause, King William sighed. "Very well. If this is truly what you both want, you have our blessing to begin an official courtship. But Marcus, you will need to prove yourself worthy, not just to us, but to the entire kingdom." The hall erupted in cheers and applause. Charlotte and Marcus looked at each other with joy and relief. Knowing they had taken the first step toward a future together as the crowd celebrated around them, Charlotte whispered to Marcus, "Yesterday you stood tall under the hot sun for me. Today, I stood tall against royal tradition for you. Whatever challenges we face next, we'll face them together." Marcus took her hand in his, no longer caring who saw. Together he agreed, and so began the greatest love story their kingdom had ever seen. A princess who chose her heart over her crown, and a guard whose devotion had finally been rewarded with the love he had always dreamed of, but never dared hope for.